Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Don Hudson. It's good to be with you. Let's introduce our two members of our panel of pundits. I guess we have two of the three here. George Korda, political analyst. Greg Griffith, our healthcare analyst here. Let's start out in Washington, D.C., shall we? I almost want to say recently at the Capitol, because I want to go through this list. Accusations of a former U.S. speaker, kidney shotting, giving a kidney shot to Representative Tim Burchett. We heard Representative Burchett and Kevin McCarthy both came out with their versions. I'm sure you've heard their versions. Matt Gaetz went so far as to file an ethics complaint against McCarthy. Then we had Senator Mark Mullen and a Teamster union boss, Sean O'Brien, challenge each other to a fight. I don't know if you saw that video. Bernie Sanders had to break it up. I mean, that's where we're getting to. And two House Judiciary Committee members getting in a shouting match. That's Representative Moskowitz and Representative Comer. A lot of tension at the Capitol. Or is it just because there's more cameras? Or is it because the news is slow? What anyone got a theory on why this is going on? And obviously it's probably connected to the budget hearings as well. We'll start with Craig.
Yes, it's a very turbulent time in Washington. There's a lot of divisions. There's many silos that individual members of the House and Senate are in, and they don't want to get together with any of the other people. So it's becoming a very fractious time in Washington. They can't seem to pass much legislation. There was even a Texas representative that got into the podium in the House and asked, what have they done since they've been elected to the majority? And there's not a good answer for that. So I think it's a lot of nerves are on edge. And you know, it's like you're in an elementary schoolyard. You hit me and I'll hit you back. And you have an 80-year-old having to referee fights between senators and witnesses. I personally think that this is like a schoolyard. I think they should take 2 or 3 weeks off and go to their districts and be required to have 40 hours of public service. Go into a classroom and help a teacher. Go on patrol with a police officer. Help in an assisted living. Let them actually sit out all these millionaire representatives. Let them sit with the regular individuals that are working hard every day to see if they're addressing the issues that are on the top of mind of these people. Maybe even let Tuberville go to a military base and listen to the troops to see what their real issues are. So it's almost very embarrassing to the public. I think it'll probably lower the ratings of Congress and the trustworthy polls, but that's where we are in our politics now.
Well, when I was working for the city, I would sometimes look out the window of my office and I'd think there are 175, 180,000 people out there, and they don't all think alike. And so there's this, the issue with respect to listening to the people. You get Tennessee, there are almost 7 million people. You can't listen to all of them. So you have to make your best judgments. But getting to this issue, there have been situations or instances in the history of Congress where members of Congress many, many years ago took canes to each other, right. Beat each other with canes. And emotions are always high in times of stress. The question becomes, who are the leaders who can calm things? Who are the leaders who can rise above that to show the country we have a better way of addressing these things? And I think a lot of these, I know there are headlines and I know you can get attention from it, but I think, for example, in the case of Speaker McCarthy and Representative Burchett, if Tim thought he got hit, you go to McCarthy in his office and say, let's go to the House gym, put the gloves on, and we'll settle it. But it doesn't, I don't think that it does him any particular great service to talk about it publicly and McCarthy to talk about it publicly. And But I mean, this has gone on a long time. I was just reading a little while ago about how 2016 Joe Biden was talking about how if he were back in high school, he'd take Trump out behind the high school and beat his butt. I mean, people tend to want to show that they are tough guys. And that's not what the country's looking for right now from our leaders. And one of the significant problems I think that is going on here is, you can see it in presidential debates as well. We are social mediaing everything. Everything is becoming a social media complaint fest.
Right.
And that's not doing any of us any good.
I've always noticed, and I'm not a psychologist, just play one on TV, I guess, so to speak. But I've always noticed people get that kind of, that whole physical thing comes out when you would reference leaders, and Craig had mentioned, doing the community service, getting in there when they're not doing what they should be doing, and when they don't have a good idea, and when they don't have a plan to go forward, all of a sudden it becomes more verbal and physical. But again, I can't psychoanalyze everybody who's there. I'm sure there's some great people who would never even raise their voice. They would just walk away from it.
Well, but it's also, Don, it's also this thing that we are, if you go to virtually any political discussion on any social media platform, what happens almost immediately? People start screaming at each other and calling each other names and calling each other Nazis and communists. And that is bleeding into what political leaders, actually elected officials, how they're reacting in much a similar way. For example, we've dumbed down presidential debates to the point where now it is simply for a long time, it's been who can get off the best one-liner. Now it's who can, within a 30-second response, insult the other one the best. That's what gets noticed. And when that's what gets noticed, that's also what coverage tends to gravitate toward.
Are we
right, Don. I mean, this is all about, a lot of it's about social media. There are no editors anymore out there that can say, this is not worthy of coverage. This is just put it out there. And with the profusion of cameras, as you said, there's a camera everywhere now. Nothing can go unturned. And so it's a totally different body politic now than it was, 15 years ago. So, and I don't know if there is a solution to that. I mean, Tim Burchett has been on most every news program in America in the last, 72 hours with his ailing kidney. So I don't know that you can do much about it, because these individuals want to seize these media opportunities, these social media opportunities, and they don't want to legislate. There's no legislation going on. As I said, the representative from Texas asked somebody to come down to the microphone and say what they'd done in the last 2 years.
Hey, Don, along these lines, one of the things several years ago, before Lamar Alexander retired from the U.S. Senate, I was in his office in Washington, and we were talking about various things. And I asked him, what do you think is the impetus for the animus and anger that is so prevalent today in political discussion? And he got up from the table where we were sitting. He walked over to his desk. He picked up his cell phone and went like this, and then put it down. And I think he was right.
Well, you both have.
And I was also talking to Lamar Alexander once, and he had what I thought was a very good suggestion. And he went back in American history and said, we should only have Congress in session for 6 months out of the year. There's nothing done in this extra 6 months that they're in Washington except increased expenses to the American taxpayer. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. They'll do the work they need to do in 6 months, or they'll do the work they need to do in 11 months.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break. Several other issues we want to get into, especially state issues. So we'll be right back with more Tennessee This Week. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A few days ago, Knoxville Prep School began taking applications for the next fall. I think that happened on November 15th. That's going to be in that Boys and Girls Club North Knoxville building. Tennessee General Assembly surely is going to debate and vote probably on expanding school vouchers statewide. Governor Lee just read an article today saying he supports a bill to expand school vouchers to all 95 counties. So a bunch of questions in here. And this time we'll start with George. Is the voucher idea a good idea? Why is it better than public schools? Can it be used to make public schools better? Can we improve both of them? Or are we just headed toward a voucher and schools that are really almost all voucher instead of regular public schools?
Competition makes pretty much anything better and anyone better. I was looking today at the national report card. It's put up by the Department of Education. If you go back 30 years, there is almost no difference in the third grade reading scores and eighth grade reading and eighth grade math and eighth grade reading scores 30 years ago than today. It's almost the same. And as we've talked about before, you've got a third of third graders and a third of eighth graders able to read at grade levels. Well, parents see this. Parents, they hear this and they understand this. And you can assign whatever reason you want for it. With one group, it's always, we need more money. Well, in New York, they spend almost $30,000 a year per student. And I don't know many people who would want to go to the New York City school system. And then there are others who say it's the teacher's fault. They're not teaching. And I don't think that's true. Then there are parents who aren't involved enough. And then you have to teach to the lowest common denominator in the class, while the kids who can do better are kind of sitting there, not able to advance. So there's all kinds of reasons and excuses and what have you. But what I don't think is that we ought to tell people who are unable to afford something else, yeah, you're paying taxes, but we're not going to let you go anywhere else. You've got to go to the public school, which may be failing. And I think if people of means have the option to send their kids elsewhere, people who don't have those means should have some sort of option to do that. And one other thing, there are 3 million students who before COVID, who were in public schools, who are not now in public schools. They're getting homeschooled, they're in charter schools, or they're in private schools. And homeschooling in particular is growing like mad.
All right.
Why? Because there's concern about public education. And so therefore, people who are unable to afford it, who have an opportunity to make a choice, there ought to be some means by which they're able to make a choice.
Craig, do you think that if a child and their parents is handed a voucher and they can make that choice of going to a different school, is that going to mean that child, he or she, going to be learn better and be a better student?
Well, first of all, there's no means testing on this proposal. This is just vouchers for anybody that wants vouchers. If you're sending your child to a private school now, you'll be able to get a voucher to defer cost of that tuition under this program. So I don't know how it's helping those the most in need. So it's an unusual situation in that, yes, people need to have some choice, but are you undermining the choice of the majority who are attending public schools this way? And yeah, I'm not so sure that I want to spend part of my tax dollars paying for the tuition for private school for individuals that can afford that tuition themselves. So I'm not totally.
Would you support it if it were means tested?
I would, if it was means tested, I would support some of that, because yes, they have limited ability to do something different for their children. And but this is just a blanket. Yes, you want a voucher? Here it is. And take it to the private school of your choice.
Do you think that when they have this debate that coming out the other end and when they vote that they will address that, or do you think it's just going to be wide open?
No, I think it'll be very difficult for them to do anything other than wide open. The school of your choice.
No, they're not just going to hand out. No, they're not just going to hand out vouchers to people of means, who have a lot of money. I mean, it's kind of being characterized here as anybody who walks up and says, I want a voucher, gets one. And you know it's not going to work that way. And you know there are going to be refinements and revisions and amendments and changes, assuming anything passes. But something needs to happen. Public schools are in desperate trouble in this country. And the parents who are sending their kids to schools where a third of a grade level, only a third of the grade level are proficient, they're worried about their kids' futures, and they have a right to be worried.
Yeah.
No, from what I've seen in this proposal, it's statewide. You know, that's the only qualifier that I have seen.
Well,
And I don't know if they're going to put a means testing on it, because the means testing proposal already exists in Nashville and Memphis. And it isn't being used by a whole lot of people, I might point out. So
doesn't matter how many use it, as long as people have a choice.
Well, and it'd be interesting for some of those rural counties
that's like saying all these charter schools, you know, they're failing, and so we don't have a choice on charter schools now.
All these charter schools are failing. What are your statistics on that?
Some of the charter schools are failing.
Well, I think most people are pretty clear on what's happening in public schools. And you can make the same argument. Why are we continuing to pour money into schools where only a third of the kids are proficient at their grade level?
Well,
and they just arguing.
It was only under the Haslam administration where the Tennessee schools made the greatest improvement in reading. So it's not like these schools aren't improving. They're not like they're working hard to develop curriculums where people can read better. But you had the pandemic in here that's reduced educational levels, and the whole issue, like we talked about last week, of holding back third graders who can't read. There was only like 100 of them that got actually held back.
That's because there's so many exemptions. That's because there's so many exemptions.
Well, that's because the parents took on the onus of, yes, let's do tutoring. Right. Yes, let's do summer school. They saw the importance of it. And that's why I said perhaps the law succeeded in getting people to understand the importance of this.
Yeah. So we want to continue talking about funding and education, but a different topic. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with more Tennessee This Week. Well, welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Another issue dealing with education and dealing with money. That committee or working group, task force, however you want to explain it, has been meeting to discuss the pros and the cons, the feasibility of maybe saying no to the federal education dollars so that they don't have to deal with any of the strings attached. So everybody knows it's about $1.8 billion of federal money. We learned Thursday that no constituents have been allowed to testify during these meetings, no like just regular parents or teachers. And some of the people that our state capitol reporter talked to, one of the people said, quote, you're going to set our children back decades. Now, Bristol Republican State Senator John Lundberg, he chairs one of the groups, and he was one of the people who said, let's just not have regular people in here, because this is what you're going to get is people who are just going to be emotional about it. Let's just try to really figure out if this is feasible without the emotion. So there's a lot there to unpack. Is it the right move to not let parents and teachers in there, just sticking to lawmakers and experts? And how do you see this all playing out? And we'll start with Craig.
Well, I found it very unusual that they specifically also didn't let members of the disabled community advocates speak at these hearings. And as we heard from Courtney on numerous occasions, a lot of the money, the federal money, goes to helping disabled students across the state. It also goes to rural schools. And I also find it interesting that the Lease administration is not really totally embracing this.
Right.
My personal opinion is that they want to do something else with that money. They want to take state money that they could use for other things like school improvement or like road building or like fixing a lot of this 800 substandard bridges in the state. And so I'm not sure that the administration is going to play a pivotal role in this. I personally think that it'll probably make it through the General Assembly, even though they can't identify a single string that will be cut if they do away with the federal money. As many of the local school board members said when they testified in the committee, state money has as many strings as federal monies, and there's no way they're going to get $1 billion of money without state strings attached.
Well, That's interesting. You just said nobody can identify a string, and now you're saying even state stuff has strings attached. So clearly there are strings attached.
Well,
to
nobody
federal
said
money.
one. No one said one. They've
But
said
here-
there's strings
but-
attached, but they
But
haven't
here,
said is there
look, the
cause, then,
federal
or number of
government is
reports?
not. Are you? May I?
Go
The federal
ahead.
government's not going to walk in here in Tennessee. Here's $1.8 billion. Spend it however you want, in whatever way you want on education. They're not going to do that. That's not how it works. What's going to happen is they're going to have something. I don't care whether it's a little bitty string or a great big string. I have a greater concern, macro concern. And we've talked about it before. I talk about it again, because nobody seems to care about this, except when the crisis comes, everybody will be pointing fingers at everybody else saying, you're responsible for this. The United States government, in our names, on our credit, is borrowing $230 million every hour of every day, of every week, of every month in the year to keep the doors open. This federal money we're talking about, we don't have that money. We don't have money to be handing out grants for trees. There's an elk preserve in Wyoming. It's a nice thing. And it costs millions of dollars a year. We don't have the money for that. We don't have the money. We cannot afford the government that we have. And we're arguing about money we don't have, because if we don't grab it, somebody else will grab it. That's a little bit like when I was in the Army and we had the oil embargo of 73. There was a order came down from higher headquarters. Any unit that doesn't use its vehicle 50 miles a day is going to have to turn it in and check it out on an as needed basis. So what did everybody on the post do? At 4 o'clock, their drivers went out and drove their vehicles until they hit 50 miles. Well, that's kind of the same thing. That's a cousin of what we're talking about. We don't have the money. And this argument that if we don't take the money we don't have, somebody else will spend the money we don't have, is leading us over this into this
But don't you think?
Of debt?
That should come from the federal government, and they should go to all the states and say, hey, we're not going to give any money back. And that way it wouldn't be an issue.
Exactly.
Tennessee would be able to say, hey, we're going to do the same thing.
Well, all I can say is that I'm sure Kentucky will take that $1.8 billion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to the last topic. We only have a couple minutes left. We had Knoxville local elections here recently. I haven't had really a chance to talk about them. I'm just looking at some of these numbers, and there wasn't really a close election. I mean, the closest one was 3,000 votes, 60% to 40%. Other ones were like 71 to 29, 61 to 39. I'm curious your reaction to how it all played out.
Well, the way it played out is this. There are roughly 80,000, 83,000 voters in the city who didn't care enough to vote. And you've got a core, dedicated, left of center voting constituency in the city that is going to continue to win elections until or unless there are enough people either angered or fearful of what the left of center government does to cause them to say, I've got to go out and vote again. I don't want this to be San Francisco. I don't want this to be Chicago or New York. But that hasn't taken root yet. And until or unless somebody can make that case and cause some of those 83,000 to listen, or more, above the 40%, nothing's going to change.
And Craig, you get the last comment here. We have about 40 seconds left.
Well, I think it shows a satisfaction with the direction that the city is going. It's surprising in the sense that the primary races were much closer than the general election races were. There were some that were very narrow victories in the primary, but through the course of the general election, the people that voted, that were running, got their vote out in much greater numbers. So it's very hard to knock off an incumbent in one race, in the city council race with Amelia Parker and Tim Hill, but in the judges race, a newcomer won, which is very unusual.
And that's going to be the last word. Craig, George, we thank both of you. We thank you at home for watching. We'll see you next week. Well, actually a couple weeks from now. I think we're off during the Thanksgiving week right here on Tennessee This Week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.